Tell me, what do you mean by the inheritance? What do you mean by the inheritance? The key definition of the inheritance is the transmission of genetic information from one generation to another generation. For example, if I'm just going to talk about myself, I have few characters of my mother and few characters of my father. Now that kind of definition is regarded as the inheritance, means the transfer of genetic information from one organism to another organism. There are certain things that you must understand. Please write down the things with your uh, copy pen. Just you must have a copy pen to write down the material that is in front of you. The how can you identify that the inheritance can be transferred? Basically, when the concept of genetics was introduced, the people, they were not able to define how the informations being transferred from one organism to another organism or another generation. Just to understand that concept, you need to understand few kind of things that I'm going to share here again on my whiteboard. But as I have told you earlier that when you talk about the genetics, genetics is not only the name. Just to understand the concept of genetic crosses and genetic information and like the information about the genetic material, there are certain things that you must need. I'm not going in detail, just I'm going to give a very brief information that is very much necessary for your examination, that is very much necessary for your examination. First of all, there are certain terms that you must know while you are going to study the chapter of genetics. Number one, there is a term that is called chromosome. Okay, when we talk about the chromosome, I'm just writing here Chromosome. What do you mean by chromosome? When you talk about the chromosome, okay, chromosome, I'm just going to make it more visible here in front of you. That is chromosome. Okay, basically the word chromosome is derived from two words. Number one is chromo. I'm just going to highlighting it, and zome. This is not some, this is zome. Chroma and zoma. Okay. Okay. Now, when you talk about the chromo, the word chromo means color. COLOUR, color. And the word zoma, the word zome is derived from zoma, SOMA, zoma. Zoma means unit and body. What's the meaning of zoma? Zoma means unit or body. So when you talk about the chromosome, generally it's a colorless substance, but why it is called chromosome? During the cell division, let's suppose this is the cell. This part is called cell surface membrane, and this is what, this is the nucleus, and inside the nucleus we do not know what is happening here. But when this cell is going to ready itself or make it ready itself for the cell division, what will happen during the cell division? Its genetic material, where basically which is its condensed form of DNA, which is called chromosome, it will become condensed and it will become visible like this. Okay, it will become visible like this. And during the microscopy, when we perform the microscopy of the cells which are in the process of cell division, we are just going to perform the microscopy. During the microscopy, what happened? Microscopy, when we perform the microscopy, okay, what happened? the cells which is going to divide, and during the microscopy we also use a technique which is called staining of the cells. Okay, this is called staining. Staining means to give color. Staining of cells. Okay, so during the microscopy we just give different kind of colors to particular specimen like this cell. So during the microscopy of this dividing cell, what can we observe? We can observe that these material can be highlighted, and the color that we are introducing in them, they will react with these substances and they become visible inside the microscope. From So that's why they are named as chromosome, means the colored body. Why they are called colored body of the cell? Because during the cell division, when we perform the microscopy, and during the microscopy when we perform staining, means when we reacting the different kind of dyes with the dividing cells, what can we observe? We can observe that these dividing cells have the thread like structures which appears colored inside the microscope. They are called chromosome. That was a brief history about that structure, that you must know that what do you mean by the chromosome. But what about the definition of the chromosome? It's very much necessary. Okay, but when you talk about the definition of the chromosome, a simplest form or simplest definition of the chromosome is that chromosome, it is a condensed, it is a condensed form of a DNA. Okay, it is a condensed form of a DNA. Okay, you have little bit information of DNA that you have also studied in your previous classes. Like for example, I'm just going to highlighting it. I'm just going to highlighting it here. Like this is the double helix molecule. We will also study little bit information regarding the DNA. Like this is DNA. What I was telling to you, but when you talk about the DNA, basically this is the what is chromosome? Chromosome is basically a condensed form of DNA, and we know that DNA means deoxyribonucleic acid, and it's a thread-like structure, a double helical structure. When it's supercoiled or condensed, what will happen? It will form chromatin. The DNA will convert itself to chromatin. Okay, or chromatin, or you may say that this is a chromatid. And when it supercoiled itself, when it supercoiled itself, it will become what? It will become a chromosome. I'm not going in detail. I'm not going in detail. Again, I'm saying that just for the sake of information, I'm saying that. Now, what do you mean by chromosome? Basically, chromosome is a condensed form of DNA, super coiled form of DNA. When a DNA just coiled itself on histone protein, what happens? It becomes a thread-like structure. This thread-like structure is called chromosome. Okay, now chromosome, this is chromosome. Most of the time you can see the different structures of chromosome. Like this is a chromosome. This is a chromosome. Now one chromosome is basically made up of one DNA. Okay, one chromosome is mainly made up of what? This is mainly made up of one DNA, and this DNA basically keeps what? This DNA keeps some proteins which is called histone proteins. These are the histone proteins on which this DNA is super coiled. Now this is what this is called histone protein. Okay, so a chromosome is a condensed form of DNA which is condensed or coiled on histones, and these histones are what this is called proteins. Got it? So let's suppose this is one of the DNA and this is highly coiled. This highly coiled DNA is basically, this is called what? This is called a chromosome. But this chromosome is regarding as a chromatid. This chromosome will be regarded as a chromatid. Okay, why it is called chromatid? Because it is only a one DNA which is not even made its copy. This is one DNA which has not made its copy. Now a purely one complete dichromated form of the chromosome, what will happen? This DNA will make its copy. This DNA will make its copy. Let's suppose this is the DNA and this DNA is going to make its copy, and it will make the copy like this. This is the copy of that DNA. Now the one chromatid, now this chromatid has changed to two chromatids. Now there was only one chromatid, and this one chromatid basically was only one DNA. Now it has prepared its copy, which is called the second. This was the first chromatid, and this is the DNA copy, which is called the second chromatid, or this is also called sister chromatid. There is a term that you will use, the technical term that you will use, that is called sister, okay, or daughter chromatid. Okay, now this is the sister chromatid. Basically this is the copy of that chromatid, and this sister chromatid is prepared by the help of one type of process which is called DNA replication, which is called DNA replication. Just you need to understand first chromosome, and with respect to chromosome you need to understand the DNA. Let's suppose what happened when this chromatid make its copy to make another sister chromatid. Okay, now basically this is the copy of that first chromatid, which keeps a specific type of DNA, and this sister chromatid is being made by a process which is called DNA replication. Means a DNA which has made this first chromatid, it made its copy, which is called DNA replication. Replication means to make the copy, DNA replication. And then this DNA replication, after the replication, when the DNA has prepared the copy, the next DNA, which is basically the replicated DNA or the copy of the first DNA, it again supercoiled itself, and it make what? This make the sister chromatid. Now this is the one chromatid which is basically also one of the chromosome, and this is also the second chromatid which is prepared by the first chromatid by the help of DNA replication. So we are moving further. Okay, यहाँ तक चीज आपको समझ में आएगी बेटा? Is it clear? Okay, should we move further बेटा? Should we move further?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now
Yes, sir.
again move. There are certain things that you will again experience during the class of genetics, and these are the very specific things. Like I'm moving again towards your book, and that book will help you to understand that. Now this is what basically this is the dichromated chromosome. Means this is the one chromosome and this is the second chromosome. Now this is one chromosome and this is second chromosome, and these both chromosomes basically they are attached to one another, and they are called a complete chromosomal structure which keeps the two DNA or two chromatids. Now they both chromatids, they are attached on a one side which is called centromere. Centromere. Okay, beta. Now this is what this is called centromere. You may also write that definition that you can see here. A chromosome is a thread of DNA made up of a string of genes. Okay, but these chromatids, which are basically the two DNA and they are copied to one another, they are the basically the Xerox copies. Now they keep what they keep a part which is called centromere, which has a very importance in the field of genetic engineering, in the field of cell biology, and in the field of genetics. Got it? Now this centromere, okay, now these two chromatids has joined together here. I'm just moving again to my whiteboard, and this will help you to understand the basic concepts. Okay, now beta, that was a port where these two chromatids, which are basically are what these are, they have joined together. This point is called what? This point is called centromere. One of the great importance of that centromere, on the basis of that centromere, you can identify the different types or the forms of DNA or chromosomes types. So, but one of the great thing that you must understand here, on the basis of that centromere, I'm just going to make different kind of chromatids and chromosomes. Like this is the monochromatid chromosome. Its centromere is just like that, and it's another chromatid like this. This is one of the form of DNA or chromosome. This is another type of chromosome, and this is another type of chromosome. These chromosome basically are what they have. The chromatids, complete chromosome keeps the two chromatids. One is the original chromatid and second one is the daughter chromatids. So you can see that the position of that centromere is found here in this set. Centromere is just in the center of the chromatids. Here, the position of the centromere is little bit away from the chromatid, and this is on the last side of the chromatid. So you can see here, now such kind of chromatid or chromosome which centromere position on the last side of their ends, they are called telocentric chromosome. They are called telocentric chromosome. Why it is called telocentric? Telo means last. Okay, telo means last, and centric means chromosome, because the position of centromere is on the last side. This is called telocentric chromosomes. Okay, beta. Now this is called mesocentric. Meso means in between or the center, and this is called acrocentric chromosome because its chromosome is not in the center but it is found little bit above or less from the ends. Or you can see that the both ends of the chromosome, they are equal, but in that case the both ends of the chromosome is not equal. So we are moving again. When we talk about the DNA, there are certain regions which keep different kind of codes. These codes, they are called genes. They are called genes. Okay, they are called genes. First of all, again, write these things. We will be right back again within 30 seconds. There is one thing that is called, there are certain region of DNA, they have specific codes. This code is called genes, and the word generation and then genetics and genesis, they all have been derived from this side. This is the key point of DNA. The whole DNA is not for us because we are very much concerned about that part. This is called genes. When you talk about the genes, okay, what do you mean by the genes? Okay, now I'm just writing here genes. Write it down, beta. Genes are the specific part of DNA. A gene is a specific part of DNA. Gene is a specific part of DNA which is responsible to make or produce a genetic character. It is a special or specific part of DNA. Got it? Now, what do you mean by gene? This is the specific part of DNA which is responsible for genetic characteristics. Okay, let's suppose we have different kind of genes. We have the genes of hairs, we have the genes of hair color, we have the genes of eye color, we have the genes of different kind of proteins, and how they control. We say that a gene basically is a controlling unit of a cell. We also say that, but why we say that? Because then DNA, I'm just moving towards the next chapter or the next thing. Basically, a DNA, we know that a copying of DNA, this is called replication process. But there is another process, DNA, this is DNA. I'm making it very much simple just for the sake of understanding. This is one of the thread of DNA that I'm making it here. But DNA makes messenger RNA. DNA makes the RNA. This RNA, the formation of RNA, like RNA is what? RNA is a single strand or single helical structure. Now this process is basically what? This is called transcription. This is called DNA transcription. Are you getting my point? This is called DNA transcription. Okay, there is a huge difference between DNA replication and DNA transcription. You must understand it. So DNA replication, formation of new DNA from the first DNA, and DNA transcription means DNA is just sending its code to make messenger RNA. This is called DNA transcription. Okay, now you are very much clear about the DNA replication and DNA transcription. Is it clear, beta? DNA replication and DNA transcription. DNA transcription means when DNA makes the messenger RNA or RNA, this process is called DNA transcription. Got it? There is another term which is called reverse transcription, in which the RNA molecules makes the DNA helix or DNA molecule. This is called reverse transcription process. So when this DNA is produced, this DNA is released into the cytoplasm, and this DNA, when this DNA is released, this messenger RNA is released into the cytoplasm. So the DNA does not move to cytoplasm directly. It makes it messenger RNA, means it is just going to give a genetic code again, means it is coding the message, it is going to transfer the message. But as you know that DNA is a very special molecule, and it does not convey its message in a very simple way. It's make the messenger RNA, and this messenger RNA moves towards where? It moves to ribosome. This messenger RNA moves to ribosome, and what happened at ribosome? What happened at ribosome? It attaches with the ribosome, and there is another RNA which is called tRNA or transfer RNA. It also moves towards the ribosome, and they both join together, and they make what? They make a thing which is called protein. Now these proteins, they basically regulate the these proteins basically they regulate the cellular activities and cellular structures and cellular pathways. Okay, now this process is called protein synthesis. This process is called protein synthesis, and then these proteins are enable the cell to perform their task. This is called protein synthesis. So now you are well aware about the protein synthesis again. Okay, beta. Now there are these terminologies will use again and again and again, like transcription, translation, replication, transfer RNA, and on that context we also call the ribosome, they are also called the protein factories. Why they are called protein factories? Because by the help of messenger RNA and transfer RNA they generate the protein. That's why they are called protein factories. So beta, now it's about a little information regarding the terms that you must know: the genes, like the DNA, like RNA. I have just a core idea about these topics because they are very much important, and these core idea will help you to understand the extended level of knowledge. The most important thing now, there is another terminology you will experience in the chapter of gene and genetics. This is called allele. Now beta, can you please give me the explanation of allele? Allele. Sometimes most of the people they also write one L, A-L-E-L-E. Allele. What's the meaning of allele? Allele is basically when you just, for example, I'm going to give one example. If you have any kind of idea, just tell me. Do you have any kind of idea what do you mean by allele? Hello? Basically, but allele is also called the alternate form of gene. This is the alternative form of gene. Let's suppose if you see your image in a mirror, this mirror image, this mirror image is basically is your allele. Your face is your original face is basically a gene, and your reflection, this is called allele. Alternative form of gene, this is called allele. Okay, now on the basis of that we have different other type of terminologies like dominant genes or dominant allele. There are few things that you must understand. Number one, the dominant genes and dominant allele. There is one term which is called dominant, which is called dominant, and there is another terminology you will use and experience. This is called recessive. This is called recessive. Do you have any kind of idea about dominant genes and dominant allele and recessive genes and recessive allele? Okay. Do you have any kind of idea about it?